What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a very late night FaceTime Live, Periscope, Zoom. I'm Travis Brown, Robert Sess with the Eagle. We're also here with Alex Miller, who will be on a little bit shortly. We're here at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, where A&M beat North Carolina 41-27 in the Orange Bowl to cap off a 9-1 season, just missing that college football playoff, but ending on a really high note here with a great fourth quarter push at the end. Cease, what's your initial takeaways from this win in the season?
Well, once again, is they just had to get the win. No matter ugly or not ugly or very pretty, whether they win by 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, or 2 points, the important thing was to finish, to get that 9-1 with so many youngsters coming back. And to me, you always look at the bottom line. They won the game, and we can talk about the roller coaster as we go along. But the bottom line is they finished very impressively when you think about the last 10, 11 minutes, how well they played. That's what they're going to remember, along with that great play, capping a 9-1 season.
It all has to start, of course, with Devon Achane, the third string running back who gets the Orange Bowl MVP. Isaiah Spiller, of course, started the game, kind of exited the game in the third quarter with a little bit of an injury, Jimbo Fisher said. But then Achane came in, and he was kind of the hot hand, and they said they just wanted to keep going with the hot hand. He had a 72-yard touchdown run that ended up being the game winner, and then capped that off with another 1-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter as part of a 24-point fourth quarter, which is the most points scored by an A&M team in one quarter of a bowl game at all. I mean, the question was asked of Fisher, and it was kind of a joke, but it's kind of true. What is Fisher going to do next year with Spiller, Achane, and Smith all in the backfield?
Well, I think really they've got away from Smith running the ball, and you look how much he plays wide receiver. And, yes, they're going to hopefully get more wide receivers in, but it's a great problem to have. But I would say today Smith shows his value as a receiver because he had like 6 catches for like 120. I thought most of his catches were huge. If he doesn't have those catches, we might not be talking about A&M finishing 9-1. And when Chapman went down, the fact that he went out, and it just shows how versatile those young guys are. But come on, you ask that. That's what you ask of Alabama. And if A&M's going to get to the point, they need that at all positions. They need that at a lot of positions where you say, like, gee, Watto goes down, they got somebody else, they're playing for national championship. And I think that showed the depth because some of us joke, we thought Cheney, or Howard Johnson's name, he was maybe better than Spiller. That one time he came in, I forget what game it was. Auburn was saying, hey, this guy might be better because he has that sprinter speed. But, hey, those are nice problems to have.
Yeah, Achane, 12 carries for 140 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a long of 76. That's an 11.7 average on the night. That'll do pretty good. We have Alex Miller here also in Miami. Alex, what was your takes from the game?
Yeah, Travis, first and foremost, A&M capped a really good season. I mean, this has got to be the best season the Aggies have had in years, probably dating back to the 2012 season when Johnny won the Heisman and they won the Cotton Bowl. Think about the way A&M finished. They got down, and then they didn't flinch on either side of the ball. They scored 3 touchdowns in that fourth quarter. It was funny, North Carolina, they got the big touchdown, and their receiver, he put the thumbs down, and from there it was all thumbs up for the Aggies. And, whether it was Kellen with his legs or Achane busting down the sideline. And then on defense, you think about the seniors that rose up, whether it was Buddy Johnson or Jaden Peavy getting the 3rd and 1 stop and then the 4th and 1 stop to force that turnover on downs. I mean, North Carolina, they really rolled the dice going for it. They're deep in their own territory, and they had timeouts. It wasn't like this was game. I mean, they could have punted it, given the ball back to A&M, tried to rest on their defense, but no, they went for it. And then the Aggies, they went and slammed the door shut. Achane wanted that second touchdown, and he got it. So, I mean, what a finish to a fantastic season for the Aggies. And, Jimbo said it. They give so much credit to the seniors, guys that he didn't recruit. They bought in, they stuck around. Think about the guys like Kellen and Buddy and Jaden. And then you think about the future, what you saw tonight from Achane. Anais Smith in the second half, he exploded. DeMarvin Leal was making plays like normal. We saw Andre White and Antonio Johnson get their first starts. So, it's kind of a mix of both worlds. And Jimbo was asked after the game, is this similar to the third year at Florida State when they won the Orange Bowl and won the national championship the next year? And he goes, yeah, and I'll take the result in year 4 too. So that's just kind of my thoughts on the game.
Yeah, it was an interesting game for me to think about because it was kind of like everything that A&M did well leading up to the season. They didn't do so great for 3 quarters, and the things that maybe necessarily they weren't great at, they were kind of good at it. For instance, offensive line play was a little bit struggled a little bit through the first 3 quarters. There was the end of the second quarter where you had 2 sacks on one drive. A&M ended up going down and getting points out of it, but they'd only come into this game with 4 sacks the entire season. A lot of penalties on the offensive line. Mon was under pressure a lot, which just hadn't happened a whole lot this season. Also, third downs. I believe they finished 5 for 12 on third down, but up until that point, it wasn't necessarily a great third down percentage. They were one of the best third down offenses this year. And then if you look towards the end of the game, one of the ways that you could beat A&M, that seemed to be the textbook way to beat A&M, is beating them over the top of their defensive backs. It worked once when they went for the big 72, I think it was 72-yard touchdown pass over the top pass Leon O'Neal. But there towards the end of the game, that's what they started to try to lean on, was taking shots downfield. And you had a couple of big stops by Brian George, one by, I believe, Jalen Jones out there at cornerback too. And they really shut that down at the end of the game. So it was interesting to see how maybe things that worked for them leading into this game switched a little bit. At the end of the game, offensive line, great. You've really sprung a chain there for the end, but probably one of their most up and down games of the season, maybe.
Yeah, through 3 quarters, I always ask myself if the game ended right there. See, I didn't think A&M was playing that well, and it was hard for me to say because I thought North Carolina was playing well, even though they did 4 players. I thought they were taking the fight to A&M, and I thought they had A&M tentative because A&M had like 4 3 and outs during that time in the first 3 quarters. And I thought the defense blitzing got them on. The line didn't pick some guys up. So I thought A&M was tentative, and we hadn't seen A&M be tentative in a while. And once again, I wanted to give North Carolina credit, but I expected A&M to dominate that team the way they dominated the last 12 minutes. And sometimes, you got to do the whole 60 minutes. But at that point, it's amazing. We're talking about how great A&M is, whatever, but that wasn't the case when it was 27-20 North Carolina. And one of those touchdowns was a gift that North Carolina gave them. And they dropped a couple potential big plays. But once again, as you got to look at the whole 60 minutes, and we're walking away from a 41-27 game that A&M just dominated at the end. And that is always the bottom line. I think with all these youngsters, they'll even be better at starting quicker. We actually saw a Demas sighting tonight. They're going to find people to spread the field other than Smith. Smith was wide open a couple times when Mon had time to throw. They hit that down and out. He was in no man's land about 20 yards down, wide open. But you knew this was not a really good North Carolina team, missing 4 key players. But I give them credit. They played hard. And I thought they should have gone for it, Alex, at the end, because they couldn't stop A&M. A&M had scored like on, the last 2 possessions. And I felt Mac Brown also probably said, hey, we can pick up 1 yard. Well, no, you can't. In 2 plays, you could pick up 1 yard. And you could tell the game was over at that time. When they walked off the field, North Carolina was beat. But once again, it's a bowl game. Who shows up and who doesn't? I just know that's a pretty happy plane ride probably back to College Station.
I mean, I think both teams showed up pretty well in this game, as we said. Everyone's favorite player, Damon Demas, who gets the most retweets and everyone wants to know about him. He saw the field 3 times. And a lot of times you can say, well, he was on the field and that's it. Actually, he made an impact on one play. And one of those ones where Anais Smith caught the ball about 20 yards on the crossing route in the field. He went straight on a vertical and took 2 defenders with him.
The corner and safety went with him.
Both with him, and that left Anais Smith wide open. And if that's what I think people, of course, are wanting to see with him, it was good to see that you kind of left the season 2020 with this player that was so highly touted that a lot of people want to talk about with that kind of a good play. I mean, when he gets on the field now, it's all eyes on him. And he was able to make an impact. Also, another player, kind of an unsung hero player, Kagan Baldry, the fullback, got a little bit more playing time in the game. He's been a little bit off and on. He made a great block on Isaiah Spiller's first touchdown run on the 4th and 1.
The 9-yard
run, 4th and down one. Just a great block. He's a senior. We'll be moving on, but good to see a little bit from him. Now it's a matter of kind of looking forward to the future, and if you have a lot of players. Kellen Mond said after the game he didn't know if he was going to play. I talked to his dad before, and it seemed like every indication is he's going to try to go to the NFL. You have 4 senior offensive linemen that could hurt or hamper or help this team moving on. It's going to be a weird year looking ahead at what the draft is going to be, and we'll have a lot of time to talk about it, but it could be a very different team or it could be a very similar team moving into next year.
Well, once again, A&M's talent is so much better, even with these guys. Even if all the seniors would leave, A&M's talent level gets increased. Think about all the freshmen that didn't play a lot, because look at the sophomores. How many sophomores we keep mentioning? Weidemeyer, Spiller, Smith. The list goes on and on. Marvin Leal. And the bottom line is there's a lot of freshmen we haven't even heard yet. We know they're very talented. So they're talented all across the board. The way things are going, they don't, people come back. They'll come back thinking they can start. You can always, the bottom line is A&M's to position where next year at this time, not this time, but next year after 8 games, are they in position to be in the college football playoff? That's what you're going to be looking at. You hope, if you're an A&M fan, that's what it gets down to. They still might not get there next year. I mean, let's be around, look at Oklahoma, Alabama, but A&M is in that conversation. We weren't saying that last year they were in the conversation. They didn't beat anybody last year except Oklahoma State. But now they're in the conversation. It's going to be a great off season. Hopefully we'll put COVID behind. And there's 1,000 stories we can talk about. Who's coming back, who might not be coming back. A&M is going to finish the highest they finished since 1939. They're going to finish like 3rd in the country probably. Maybe fourth in the country, with Clemson, get second loss. You got to put A&M above Clemson. You got to put A&M above Notre Dame. I'm talking about the AP Bowl. They're the only one that comes out. So A&M will say they're 3rd or 4th in the nation after this. And that team's got a lot of holes. I mean, and I say a lot of holes, a few holes. You don't win nine games with they have a few holes, and they're going to get better. Now, the record might not indicate it, but I think A&M will continue the next 2 or 3 years to be a better team, but we'll see what the record shows.
Yeah, and it's a style to a Jimbo Fisher that is complicated, and it'll just get better as you get more guys throwing through. Well, you answered kind of one of my questions, talking about where we think A&M could finish, since this is really the last bowl besides the championship game. I think 3 is – I don't think – like, let's say Alabama just absolutely blows Ohio State out of the water. I still don't think that A&M moves in and finishes.
Yeah, that Clemson win was pretty big.
Right. So I think it's number 3 there. Let's talk about this to kind of wrap things up. Kellen Mond, 4-year starter. It's been a long time since A&M's had a 4-year starter around these parts. And Kellen Mond came in here and broke almost just about every record. When Jimbo Fisher was asked about Kellen Mond, he said he's one of the great A&M quarterbacks, great quarterbacks in A&M history. You've covered a lot of quarterbacks in A&M history. Now that, we talked about the committee having the full resume, now that you have Kellen Mond, we believe's full resume, where does he rank and how should his name go down in A&M history?
It's kind of tough. It's like talking about the Heisman right now. And this is, remember, Jimbo's only had one quarterback, so he's going to be very partial to him. And I'm not saying, I thought this was a typical Kellen Mond game. When you step back, he didn't do a lot, but he didn't do anything to hurt the team. I mean, he didn't try to throw a pass away when he's getting sacked. He had the big touchdown run, which they needed. He had good numbers. And you might say, well, how had the 75-yard touchdown pass? He almost had another 80-yard touchdown pass, whatever it was. Oh, he had some great runs. He had some flashy plays, but he also had the big interception. Kellen Mond, all he does is win. And I remember Corey Pullick, that was knock on him. All he did was win. He had great players around him. Well, Mond, Johnny Manziel's always going to be the mark. Oh, my gosh. The guy was so good. I mean, and Tannehill was good. Johnson was good. Did they have as many good players around them? No. And did they have a system? It was a different system. Mond adapted to to Fisher's style. Would I call him one of the top 2-3 quarterbacks in A&M history? I say you got to put him raised a number 2 to Pollock, but yet, who won the Heisman? So those lists, what do you want out of your quarterback? I want him to win games. Mond won a lot of games, and didn't have a lot of great players except around them all the time, except 2 years ago. That was a pretty talented team.
And with Kellen Mond,
did I talk that well enough? Good, thanks.
Yeah. The best adjective I can ever use to come up with for Kellen Mond is pragmatic. He was the perfect pragmatic quarterback. He's not Johnny Manziel. He's not flashy, but he's going to win you ball games. He's going to do the little things pretty well. He might have a bad game here or there, a bad pass here or there, but he's going to win ball games. I think that, like you said, this is a perfect Kellen Mond game. I think this was also kind of a perfect microcosm of what this 2020 A&M team was too. And it was a team that isn't flashy. They're not Ohio State. They're not going to throw these big bombs and make these big pass plays and sling it around like maybe Ohio State or some of these other teams are, but they're going to be good enough on both sides of the ball to win games. And I think that might have actually been something that hurt them a little bit this year in looking at the college football playoff, because you don't want the singles and doubles hitter who's going to continue to move the bases around and score runs. You want the big home run hitter. And I think the home run hitters are the teams that maybe got the look for the playoff. A&M is hitting for average. They're a football team that hits for average. I think this was a perfect microcosm of that they didn't necessarily put together their best game, but they went out there and did what it took to win. And I think you can't wrap up the 2020 season in this 2020 team any better than that.
I agree with that 100%, and they couldn't help it. The rest of the SEC wasn't good enough to have quality wins against top 25 opponents. I don't think that'll be a problem next couple of years. That's why, A&M will be ready for the challenge. But, they might go 10-2 next year and have a better team and have a chance to make the college football playoff. Who knows? But, you got to give this team a lot of credit, because when I was watching that Vanderbilt game, I'm saying, oh, my gosh, we're going to go to the Duke's Mayo Bowl if we're lucky. We're going to be there, or maybe I go, oh, they can't go to the Independence Bowl because it's not SEC anymore. And that was before all this COVID and all this stuff. But come on, at the Orange Bowl, unfortunately, COVID cut down on us going out and wearing Hawaiian shirts 4 or 5 nights in a row. But the bottom line is they got to the Orange Bowl. Come on, and won the Orange Bowl.
We got to close it with this: the best play of the game, the 2 jukes that Jimbo Fisher had on the Gatorade buckets after the game. I don't know.
He was a quarterback.
Jimbo Fisher kind of walks. He has kind of this stroll, this kind of gait about him that you think like he's had a couple injuries as a quarterback in his day. That guy can move. When he was faced with Gatorade fall down on him, he moved pretty good.
He's wiry.
He is wiry. Alex, closing thoughts for the 2020 season.
Yeah, Travis, I think you described it really well. It was a team that wasn't flashy, but they somehow always found a way to win, and they made the plays that they needed. And I'm curious how this team transitions into future seasons. They keep talking about we're laying the foundation. We're not done yet. Well, I'm curious to see what the future looks like, and if this team can carry that momentum and kind of that mentality into future seasons, as some of these younger guys, some of these sophomores that have really emerged as key pieces to this team can take hold of that, as some of the younger guys are going to have to step up for those seniors that Jimbo really groomed into pivotal playmakers like Kellen and Buddy and Jaden, and the list goes on and on. I'm curious how it transitions as we look ahead to 2021 for A&M football.
Definitely. Well, as we close this out, definitely want to say, as we always do, to check theeagle.com for our recaps and stories, videos from tonight's game. There'll be more follow-up as we get into the days ahead, wrapping up this 2020 season. We also want to say thank you to you for watching and reading this football season, as we always do. It's been a weird one. It's been a fun one. And hopefully here's for some more fun games in the future. Hopefully sans masks and with some more people in the stands as we move into spring ball and fall. So thank you very much for a great season, and we'll talk to you again soon.